Welcome to the PoPolitickin show. Created in 2008, PoPolitickin is a hip-hop meets self-help brand. With each conversation, we teach the babies and share success secrets with you, the listener. Our focus is to preserve the hip-hop culture and introduce the future upcoming stars. Past guests of the PoPolitickin show include Yo Gotti, Megan Thee Stallion, DaBaby, Currency, MC Light, Jay Prince, Dead Prez, Razcast, and more. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts to get automatic updates of each episode. Keep politicking with Po on social media at PoPolitickin. Visit our website, PoPolitickin.com, for more exclusive content.
Hey, welcome back to PoPolitickin.com, your home for self-help meets hip-hop. Right now we're live on YouTube, but check me out on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. 1212 on Place to Be with the homie, the captain, Paul Porter. How you doing?
Good, man. We got the same last name, so we family for sure.
Shit, I hope if I get any your jeans, I'm gonna be all right.
Man, you doing good already, bro.
I got the book. So this the book. I wish I could have got it signed.
Years in the music business, man. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so like I said, me and my wife actually I was being lazy, man. She was reading it for me, so she read it. I was just listening. So she read the book, but we got. I think it picked up on like the first beginning of it was kind of just you talking about your background, but then it picked up and you just be like, what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next? And man, you had like a million jobs. I was like, God damn, like you had a lot of jobs.
Well, let's be honest. The book opens up with payola at BET.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there were so many books that I read about the music industry that all weren't true. We have so many superstar books, or we got books like Steve Stout, who was a criminal at the record labels, and now he starts United Masters, which is like the biggest lie. All you have to do is read the front page of the contract, and you don't own your masters. You have to go through them to sell if somebody came to you with the deal. But this industry is a bunch of smoke and mirrors. And I try to, make the book real. Everything is a story of ups and downs. These Cinderella stories that we read about people out here for money, man. And that's what rules everything in hip hop and the music industry and a whole lot more.
All right. Then I have some questions from reading the book. Before we go into the questions, I just wanted can you just give, anybody that they should know about you, but anybody that doesn't, can you just...
No, they shouldn't know, but I'm a kid that grew up in the 60s in New York and Queens. I was lucky, man. My best friend growing up, his father divorced his mom and married Nina Simone. So I was 7, 8 years old going to spend weekends at Nina Simone's house. Then another guy on my block, a guy named Bill Staten, one of the parents, he was in the music industry too. James Brown lived up the street. And I got to see a lot of things early. And when I went to school, he sent me with 100 albums. And back then in the, mid-70s, I was the man. I was going to record stores, and one thing led to another. College radio. Donnie Simpson hired me at NBC. I got a television show. I went to BET, got to start that, spent over 10 years there. And just been lucky, man. I've had a lot of jobs, from voiceover to New York radio to Entertainment Tonight to CNN. Things just changed in my life, man. Then I got crazy stories too, because I was crazy for a long time. I was in DC, in the 80s when everything was jumping off. The station was fly. I was at KISS, NBC, and some of the things that I got to see. Got to go to Africa with Stevie Wonder on his first trip, working at BET in '92, and I always tell this story because it's one of my favorite stories. You don't mind if I tell?
Oh, you good, man. Yeah.
All right. So we go to Cameroon in 1992, Stevie Wonder's first trip. It was a small crew. We were going to do the Cameroon soccer team, and the AIDS epidemic was in, Africa. So it was real scary, man. The first time I've been to Africa, the doors open, and I see a bunch of Chinese guys on the elevator. I was like, what is it? This is the 90s. They were over there doing business. But, so we went to the AIDS hospital, and I literally threw up, because it smelled weird. It was just powerful. And, everybody, they spoke French in Cameroon. So all the women were hooking up with guys in the crew. But it didn't interest me because I went to the AIDS hospital. So that night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, I get a call. It's Stevie Wonder. Hey, Paul, you got some of those Magnum condoms? And I went down and gave Stevie Wonder condoms at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's my story.
You was cool because you just went to the AIDS hospital. You was straight.
Yeah, I was like, hey, man, y'all do your thing, man. And Stevie called me, but anyway.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead.
No, what you got?
Nah, I just been lucky. I get bored in jobs, and I'm always trying to fight the system because the system's corrupt. So you get fired a lot. I work for Kathy Hughes. I work for Bob Johnson. I work for the Suttons in New York. I worked at AOL. I worked at NBC. It's been a grind, but and it's it's just fun, man, when you try to explore and find out what the business really works like.
Yeah, what I like about the book too, like you went all the way from, like you were saying, Stevie Wonder. I know you was talking about Babyface, but you went all the way from that talking about Rick Ross and Lil Wayne. So that lets me know, like, you navigated through this. You started like you sounded like you started in the late 70s, and you all the way to now. So yeah. I just wanted you to kind of talk about just the. It kind of just, we went from R&B to more like hip hop dominated, but just.
Yeah. We've been stuck on stupid for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Even in, the 80s and 90s, when hip hop first started, it was different. Yeah. I was just saying how the music has changed in the 90s. There were ballads that were number one song. I don't know if there's been a ballad number one black song in a long time. So we had more balance, And I did a study years ago. You can look it up, the Rap on Rap. Did it with the Parents Television Council. And they studied all the videos that were on BET and MTV. This was like 15 years ago. And I think it was something like 86% of them were the same thing. It was, violence, misogyny, and bling, talking about money. Those are the only stories we tell. So that sort of bothers me because music was real powerful in my lifetime. There were so many things I learned off of records, listening to songs from, being young and through the years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I don't know if you ever saw that Boondocks episode where they was talking about BET. Yeah, he kind of reminded, like, the crazy part about it where I was like, damn, when you was talking about Bob Johnson. He came to that meeting. He told everybody he doing this for his family. He don't care about y'all. Y'all can leave if y'all want to. I was like, damn.
Yo, but that's the realness of the business, And the same thing with Kathy Hughes, who owns the most Black-owned radio stations in the history of broadcasting. Yeah. When I started for her in '88, they were paying part-timers $10 an hour. And here it is, 40 years later, they're paying part-timers $15 an hour. So how do you do that and get celebrated? But we celebrate a lot just by being the first. It's not always about doing it right.
And then I guess, so I was wondering too, because I like how you was saying, it was like, I noticed you was always fighting for the good. But my whole thing, I used to be like, well, why? Why you just to say, well, you know what, man, I'm just going to get my money. Fuck all this other shit. Like, what made you?
Because it was this sad, man. It was this sad the way they treat. I got lucky. My first job was at NBC. I went from $10,000 a year to $70,000 a year. then a television show in DC at age 24. I'm making a lot of money. So my thing was bringing people up. You know, I was at a union station, NBC, and they paid $205 a shift, and Kathy Hughes paid $40 a shift. So I would call jocks from other stations and say, yo, you need to come over here, Bob Thomas. You need to come over here, Stanford Red, who's on ESPN or high. You know, it just was natural because people hooked me up when I started, you know? And I know that doesn't work all the time. And damn, sometimes I wish I was greedy because my nickname now is DJ Broke His Shit. No, but I'm all right. But yeah, I could have been a lot richer, but it's good, man. You know, and it pays. When you pay it forward, it always comes back to you. You know, it always comes back, you know, and I'm going to be 65 this year. So I get it, man. It's about long term, not short term.
I noticed your last sentence in your book, it says, I am proud. So I was going to ask you, like, what would you say some of your proudest moments in your career were?
You know, standing up for people, man. I tease, there's a brother at Radio 1, Ron Thompson. In 1989, Kathy Hughes told me to fire him. You know, but I knew Ron had 2 new kids. He was young. He was working overnight. I said, if you fire him, you got to fire me. I'll put him on overnights and won't make him talk. Well, guess what? Ron's there 43 years later with stock options and a pension. You know what I mean? It's like, why? Sometimes we fire people this for no reason or don't hire people because of, and I'd rather be surrounded with winners than losers. But I'm proud of starting stations. I'm proud of some of the things that happen at BET. I'm proud of breaking hit records. You know, I'm proud of building relationships. You know, when Joy Reid, I'm always good with talent. Like Wendy Williams, there's all these people that call me mentor because I got to see them young, man, and got to see them and work with them and build with them. So it's just paid off. It's just rewarding to me.
Yeah, I was telling my wife because I heard you talking about basketball, so you know about like coaching trees and stuff like that. So I was looking, cause I said he if he mentored Wendy Williams, you have a kind of effect with Shalimar, because Shalimar came under Wendy Williams. So I was like, you know, Shalimar is the, you know, one of the top guys right now in the game, but that's, you know, it kind of came from you, if you can say that.
Oh yeah, but yeah, that's funny you said basketball because that's what got me into music.
Mm-hmm.
I played basketball in college. My coach is in the Hall of Fame.
Who?
Jim Calhoun.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so basketball was big. Yeah, and things like the NBA. I did 10 NBA All-Star games, you know, The Voice and getting to travel to games and doing I did the NBA at 50, the documentary, and this year it's 75. I was like, damn, where's all this time? I remember when I was in Cleveland when the top 50 were announced. So it's just keep trying to do something else, you know, and that's what I've been successful at. Like I used to do voiceovers back in the 90s, man. My first spot I hit, AT&T. It's all within your reach. And that paid 65 grand. And I was all gung-ho. I'm going to do voiceovers. Because my man Adolph, you remember a guy named Adolph Caesar? He was in Soldier Story as the Sarge, The Color Purple, little light skin. And he did the part, CJ, you little geechee. Anyway, he was one of my teammates' uncles. And he was big in voiceover. He was the voice of the wide world of sports, ABC in the 80s and 90s. And he always told me, you know, forget about the radio, do commercials.
Yeah.
And then I didn't do it until I got fired from a job 10 years later. And didn't do it because, you know, for every one audition, you might go on 20 auditions and book one. So my ego was like, man, I'm used to being a Quiet Storm or, Midnight Love on BET or Video Vibrations, so I wasn't, you just grow into things over time. And if you keep your mind open, possibilities happen.
Yeah, then I remember in the book, you said Donnie Simpson told you to, when you first auditioned for him, he wrote you back and said, use your diaphragm. So we was actually wondering, so what does that actually mean when you said you, like, what?
Well, it's from talking, holding your stomach. Radio, we used to take great pride in pronunciation and diction, and that went out the window when hip hop came and everybody was like, yo, what up, my man? Before it was 1090 WILD Boston. You had to have certain energy, and then when Frankie Crockett came along at BLS, it was, a line of smooth 107.5 WBLS New York, and now it's just something completely different. So it's good to, huh?
You were working, I was reading the book, but was you ever in Atlanta?
Yeah, I worked doing talk radio at V103 sister station, AWAOK, because then I got into talk. That was my last radio job until I bought a station in Orlando 6 years ago. Yeah,
because my aunt actually, this is my aunt. I don't know what station she worked at, but she actually used to be in Atlanta. Her name was Deborah Somerville. I don't know.
Yeah,
She used to work. She used to be on
Atlanta. She worked at Kiss. Yeah, Kiss 104. Yeah,
that's my aunt, man. Like that's I never heard her. I just knew she always was on the radio. But that's my aunt. I want to ask you. So another thing I want to ask you that I noticed about, like, cause I be telling people this anyway. Cause I be like, man, like I know me personally, I don't listen to the radio, but I'm always like, you got to be careful what you play on the radio. And some people say, oh no, they can just turn away. But my whole thing is I feel like they're programming people with what they play on the radio.
Look, repetition on the radio went crazy in the 90s. Once everything went digital, like back in the 80s, the top 10 songs would play once every 3 or 4 hours. Now the top 5 songs play every 60 to 70 minutes.
Right.
The repetition is just ridiculous where, a top song would play 35 times in a week. Top song now plays 160 times in 7 days. So they drill it into your head and the playlists have gotten smaller and it's a shame. It's a lot of syndication and, in 96, that's when things really changed. The Telecom Act that Bill Clinton signed that allowed a radio ownership and television ownership in the same market to expand. Before you could only own 2 stations. You go to some stations in the South, iHeart has 8 radio stations in the same market. So you can't go anywhere. You can't be competitive. You can't say you want a better salary because they own the competition. So it's, things have changed and it's all about corporate dollars now.
Yeah, then I noticed too, like, so I was just listening because I'm like, man, I'm in my 40s, so I'm not like on it as far as what the kids listen to. But I'm like, okay, they saying the tightest rapper right now is NBA Youngboy and Young Dirt. So I'm like, let me go listen to them see what they talking about. Man, that shit like now I realize why so many rappers are dying because it's worse now. Like now it's just like the beat, I shoot you in your face, fuck you, kiss your girl. Like it's just like it's like direct now. It's not like how Tupac first off, fuck your bitch and the click you claim. No, it's like fuck all that. It's like fuck your ops, fuck your mom, I'm shooting all y'all tomorrow. It's just like I'm like, damn, that's rapping like that now. Guns all
and they get rewarded for that. But I mean, these records have such what we call in the business quick burns. Like DJ Khaled will come out with a record and you'll hear it 10 times and you're tired of it.
Right.
And radio and television, there's 3 categories in research: recognition, popularity, and fatigue. And a lot of records you get tired of real quick. There's some songs you can hear 50 times. They don't make songs like that anymore. They're real quick burn. And that's okay. But it's like boxing. Back in the day, heavyweight fights was everything. Now you don't know who the heavyweight champion is now. That's how music is. It's sort of not the same. It's not as, I remember being young going to see the Jackson 5 in high school. It was just a different vibe. You knew everybody in the group. You knew who the bass player was in LTD or Maze or New Birth or Parliament or whoever, Funkadelic. But now it's all individuals. And it's cool, but music doesn't have the same power. We used to sit around and look at albums and clean weed on them and let the seeds run down. But you had the double album set of the Isley Brothers. It was just a different feel.
That's the album. That's you, the new artist that you get a feel from?
Oh, yeah. I still, but it's always weird, folks, man. It's not, in my station, I got a station in Orlando, which keeps me up on it. But like I said, the burn factor for me is I get tired of them. As fast as they come out, a song's hot. Like I love Money Long, Hours and Hours. Like that's like a hot R&B pure song. And a lot, I've always loved J. Cole and Common and certain people, but I'll also tell you I love Maze and Frankie Beverly. And it's just funny. I got 4 decades of music in my car, So there's different stuff to me that is timeless, that's always going to sound good. And, there's songs for my son, he works in Atlanta. He works for Quality Control. So he's on the road with Little Baby and, everything Atlanta. And we just talk about it, but he rides around with a bulletproof vest. Because that's how they roll, I don't get it. It ain't that serious to me. I carry a gun every day. I live in Florida, but I'm not going out to shows where people are shooting people or getting robbed. Like they have this thing in Atlanta, they can't stop at red lights because that's where everybody gets robbed. And they pay $4,000 a month in bills and red light tickets. You figure.
Now, I didn't hear you mention this in your book, but I wanted to kind of, so did you get involved with like online radio?
Nah, man, online radio ain't radio.
So you call radio like in your car?
It's called radio professionally done. There are some good online stations, but everybody that plays music don't have a radio station. You got an internet radio station, that's different. There's terrestrial radio, there's Sirius XM, and then there's I'm going to do it myself radio, and nobody's going to learn, or I have a rotation or no, so anyway, I'm tough on radio.
Yeah, I'll ask you, so how do you feel about like online radio stations, or now you have podcasts, or like you said, people have playlists, so how you feel like?
Well, I love podcasts because that's why I'm here talking to you. I don't listen to internet radio, and I know a lot of artists that pay money to be on internet radio, and I've done plenty of interviews, but the numbers ain't there. You know what I mean? If I'm going to do something, if I'm going to market a record, I want you to get 250,000 listeners, not 20, not 100. So I'm not going to pay you to promote on your internet radio station. If you want to support it, great. But I'm going to support something I'm going to get royalties back from. Years ago when you interviewed my cousin Chris Porter, that record, The Water Dance, did I think it's up to 190 million streams now. But guess what? The radio spins that we got from 10 radio stations, the publishing paid more than YouTube.
Wow.
So if you're chasing for 0.0006 cent on a stream, and if the radio's giving me 6 cents a play, then I'd rather be on the radio, you know? And that's why all the big artists own the radio, even though radio's not as important, but the publishing side, and they call it music business for a reason.
I'm gonna say another thing, man. I want to make sure I read this right, but it sounds like what you was talking about in the book with Master P, where you say you put that gun on the desk.
Oh yeah, Master P back in the day. He was pissed that I dropped all his records when I was programming BET in '99. So I dropped all his records because, you know, BET supported him. Once he got on MTV, he did a big promotion with them in LA, and I'd taken over. So I dropped all his music. So I had a hotline in the office then, right? And I get a call, and I answer the phone, and I hear, "It's just P, why you not playing my record?" And I thought he was saying to me, P as in Paul, like Paul Porter. I said, "This is P." He said, "No, this is P." And I didn't know it was Master P because he had the super accent and shit. I was like, "Look, motherfucker, I don't know who you are." Fucking 2 days later, Master P showed up with his wrestlers and his boy Big Bob, and they were all, you know, they called me from the front desk. "Oh shit, Master P's here," and his record label told me he was coming. So I used to carry a gun. So when Hemp P and Boz came in the office, I put my Smith & Wesson 6906 on the desk. And Boz was like, "Oh shit, this nigga's crazy. I love you, man." And they had brought me a box of sneakers. That's when he was trying to play NBA ball and he had the Converse deal. And they brought me 4 pairs of sneakers and they were like, "Put that gun away." I said, "Man, I hear y'all beating up people. I just want y'all to know I'm shooting. I'm not getting fucked up anymore." But anyway, yeah.
Now, say how many of those records you still got? You were saying that you used to get all those records from record labels and stuff.
And I've given all them shits away, bro. Matter of fact, the last one I gave away was Whitney Houston died. And Donnie Simpson called me about it. And I said, "Donnie, you got one with your name on it." I had one to the station, and he said, "Man, P, I really wanted it." And I'll never forget because I FedExed it to him because that was the last one on my wall in this house right here. And I sent it to him, and he was supposed to send me something. And he ain't sent it back yet. Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me.
And I'm gonna ask you about you was talking about in your book, but just how how from payola back in the day to so what is payola now? Like, how is it now?
Yo, payola's always gonna live. You know, back in the day, it was plane tickets, some cocaine, and $100. You know, and that shit increased to when I got to BET as program director in '99. That Saturday, I'd go to my hotel, and that's how I opened the book talking about Karen Klein. I got a FedEx that said Karen Klein. I'm like, I don't know no Karen Klein, and it was addressed in Atlanta. I go to my room, I open it up, 3 white envelopes filled with 10 grand a piece in it. No name, no note, no nothing. And then I get to work on Monday, and a big indie rep said, "We sent your welcome back to BET money." And I'm like, whoa, this is how the game has changed when your program. And at the time, I was in charge of 66 million homes and had an impact. And that's how people pay you off, you know? Everybody thinks you can do shit for free, but everybody's got their hands out now. DJs, if you in Jackson, Mississippi, they charging to get spins, BDS, immediate-based spins, because everybody knows that converts into money. So thinking that you're gonna have a great record that goes to the top without money changing hands, it don't happen, you know? Or maybe it happens once in a blue moon, but you know, everybody says indie, but there's a point where the majors take control of everything.
I'm gonna ask you, so how much money does an indie artist need for a record to take off?
You know, I say you got to spend 50 to 100 grand just to crack to, you know, and you can stay local. It all depends what your plan is. You know, 50, 100 grand's not going to cover the country. But I'm saying if I tell artists start in a region. If you from Miami, start Miami, Orlando, Tampa. If you up in Richmond, do Richmond, DC, and Baltimore, places you can get to. But if you got a lot of money and you got $500,000, then I can get you, 35 stations and you can tour across the country. But most of the time, people don't have money. Everybody thinks they can put it up on YouTube or Instagram and make a ton of money, and that happens one in a zillion. But there's a lot of good indie artists out there that have planned. Most people get into business and they never think about how to make money. If your only way to make money is record sales and publishing, you lost, because streaming pays zero. So you've got to be a performer and get in. And there's so much money overseas. I work with artists overseas more than I do here, because it's a lot easier to get played in Japan, in Dubai. I've had #1 records in Dubai. Pay club dates over there, pay 25 grand, where you'd be lucky to get 2 grand or 5 grand. Okay, if your money bag, you get 200 grand. But I'm just saying, where artists can make a good living is overseas.
So shit, so it is I know. So it's really just basically hard for independent rappers if they don't got that bag.
Yo, think about how many rappers are there. That shit's a dime a dozen, bro. And half of them are speaking the same shit. It's really hard. It's hard to control your neighborhood because we're so oversaturated. Like, nobody's really changing the bar. And if you're going to change direction, Kendrick Lamar's got a record that's coming out next week. It's supposed to do 350,000 units, they're predicting already. Well, shit, that shit's taken him 15 years of work. You know what I mean? I remember when I was hearing them on mixtapes and my son was telling me and blah, blah, blah. Everybody thinks this grind. Look how long Drake's been at it, and his rise ahead of time. Now I got a guy on Broadway, Miles Frost is playing MJ and MJ the Musical. Best singer I've heard in 25 years. He's killing it. He's going to win a Tony, but he's going to make a record like Bruno Mars, not DJ Khaled. But look up Miles Frost. He's incredible.
Now, well, actually, what you think about Silk Sonic?
I like it. It don't drive me crazy. Love's Train by Confunction still sounds better than Bruno Mars' version with Michael Cooper. I love it because it's R&B, because it's instruments and rhythms and melodies. Do I think it could be better? Or do I think we should have more competing where people are sucking it up because they ain't heard it in so long, And only Bruno could do that. You know what I mean? They put the money behind Bruno Mars and leave the door open. To me, it was sort of like a parody more than a song.
Right.
I liked it, but I'm like, come on, man, and Bruno's been biting style. He had Prince down with Gorilla, when he goes into his acapella. But it's good, man. It's good to see music turning back to some, chords and strings. I think we got lost with digital. Like, everything was so beat making. And I work with all the cats, man. My guys started, with Biggie back in the day. Ron Lawrence and Derek Angeletti, man. D. Angeletti, But they were all computers, but they listened. They grew up here in the late 70s, 80s, coming from New York. So they always, and Ron Lawrence went on to produce Luther and Aretha from, all the hip hop records, the Money, Power, Respect, and all those Biggie records, like Hypnotized was his record, Faith Evans. But you got to grow in this business to last.
And then why did you name the book Blackout?
Blackout means a temporary loss of consciousness. And I think as Black people in music, we've lost our mind. You know, if you ask a 35-year-old who their favorite saxophone player is, they don't have one. You ask them who plays a guitar, they don't have one. We're some of the best musicians in the world, and we don't know musicians. We only get excited because we see Alicia Keys play the piano for a little second. Like, music is, I mean, we rule the world when it comes to music, but we're not seeing us as musicians. Nobody could imitate Prince. You know what I mean? It's sort of easy to, you know, do some of these other things, but there's something about music to me that has power. You know, the biggest record in my life was Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. Imagine in the 60s growing up, and my birth certificate said colored, and we didn't want to be called black because that meant you were ugly. You know, we wanted to be light and have straight hair like my boys, my Puerto Rican boys. And when James Brown came out with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, I've been black ever since. I ain't been African American. That's the power of music. And when you see a whole country singing, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. I used to ride my bike by his house and everybody was into the power. That's some power in music, man. When you can, when you can make people be proud of their blackness, because they had us shook. Nobody wanted to be black. You wanted to date Jane Kennedy back then.
No, it's funny you say that because even Kendrick had a song, you know, when the protest was going on, everybody was marching too, that We Gonna Be All Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that Black and I'm Proud, though, I like that song too.
Yeah, man, that's the power. And some of the things I learned in love songs back then, you know.
What you learned?
Man, there was a record called The Floaters, Float On. It's 11 minutes. And one of the guys, you know, they had to break. And that's when people used to go to parties and dance slow. And there was this part, the music would break down. And one of the guys in the group would say, my name is Paul, you know, blah, 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 rap. And I would always say that at parties, be dancing. Yeah, my name is Paul. Float on. I'm just saying, music spoke to you, you know, in a different way. And it was slick. It was slick. Like, even when D'Angelo came out with Brown Sugar, you know, you didn't know what Brown Sugar was really like. You could play it with your parents, but it wasn't like you were mentioning early, like these records like, stick a dick in his ear, motherfucker, and kill him. You know, I'm like, damn, is there any, even when Cardi came out with WAP, I'm like, really? That's how creative y'all are? Wet ass pussy. And then we got everybody say, oh, that's women's femininity, stand up. I'm like, man, shut up.
Man,
that's some bullshit lyrics.
What was crazy to me was I saw that you did a clip on I think it was Entertainment Tonight about Rihanna.
Oh yeah.
The song was talking about suicide.
Yeah, she shot her boyfriend at the end.
Yeah, what was crazy though was the part where it said it was like Neo wrote the song and Neo said, "Oh, it's not about that. It's just listen to the music and vibe out." Oh, what the hell? I was like, man, it's tripping.
Oh,
man.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Ashanti, she had a video, had nothing to do with shooting somebody, but they always do it for sensationalism. You know what I mean? It's like, really, Rihanna, you got to shoot this, bro. And so many people deal with suicide. I'm just saying, you know, and I'm not approved, man. I listen to everything, but I think about kids, like how influential music is on them, you know? And you can't tell me this music hasn't changed us. It's so inherent in our culture. And if you only grow up listening to abuse and thinking that bitches are hoes, that's how you go deal with them.
Yeah, that's what I was, because I was listening to Dick Gregory, and he was talking about the music, and he was like, man, I don't listen to no music, because he was like, I don't want to listen to negative shit all day. Then he was like, think about kids. He was like, they learn the ABCs through repetition. And I was thinking about my kid. I was like, yep, that's how she learned.
Dick Gregory, he did a morning show when I was at Magic in DC. working with Kathy Hughes. He was on with Kathy Hughes 3 days a week. So the 1 year I was there, I learned everything from Dick Gregory because he was in the building and he would come in. He had me going to get colonics and this talking about life and all the shit that he's been through. So I've always been a listener, even though I'm a talker, but I'm going to soak up as much game and experience. And I learned a lot from Dick Gregory because he was a rebel, man. He was a rebel with his health. And, you know, I didn't even think of some of the stuff that Dick Gregory, and that's what we don't do enough. That whole respect thing, a 60-year-old don't talk to a 40-year-old no more. Or people go, oh, you too old. Like, history repeats itself. This has different shapes and sizes and disguises, man. But we all go through the same shit. And sometimes I can see things that somebody else can't see, and vice versa, just like you will. But if we don't exchange that knowledge in between each other, we lost. And we got to exchange it because it's us against everybody.
Now, I don't know if you mentioned this in the book either. So what would you change about the radio?
I would change ownership. That's what I'd change. And radio's changed. Radio's not the same thing. People, everything's on your mobile phone now.
Right.
Radio's a dying art. You know, it's great for adults. And if you look at across the station, matter of fact, ratings just came out. Hot 97 in New York's number 17. Howard's number 15. They were always 1, 2, and 3. But young people ain't listening because they're not programming anything. That's what you can pick it up on your phone. So, but you know what's number 1 in New York? BLS, the adult urban station, because adults 35 up are still listening. They want to hear a song more than a beat. And you can hear a beat on your phone anywhere.
That's why I was telling my friend, I said, with the music going now, I think the next song, like the music gonna end up being just beats and gunshots to the beats. They ain't gonna rap no more. They just gonna shoot.
That's happening already. That's up in Chicago. That's been happening for years.
Yeah, that shit's out. I was like, this shit crazy, man. Like,
man, anyway, tell your wife thanks for really reading and giving you cliff notes, man. You're doing a good job. She made it easy for you. She probably highlighted shit.
Yeah, we was working, man. It was like I said, I liked the book. And then I was saying, you was talking about, I know you said the dude was telling you to just do voiceovers, but you said you like the women.
Oh yeah, but man, I don't want to get into that part.
I was saying, it sounds like in the book, none of your relationships was working though. That's why I was wondering, because
they work for time. They work for times. Like the 80s was something, the 90s. Yeah, but I've never been able. I'm here with my dog still now, bro. So it's okay. I got a Rottweiler and she loves me.
Okay. And then, so what would you just want to say to the people, anybody listening? What would you want them to know about you?
Yo, reach out and touch, man. If you got questions about this industry, I'm at Music Biz U on IG, Twitter. You know, you don't have to buy the book. You can Google C-SPAN Blackout. They gave me 90 minutes from DC and we talk real stories about the industry. If you're interested in radio and television and film, my sister's been at NBC 25 years. My brother-in-law is in charge of the Olympics. Like, they got plays on Broadway. There's so many different jobs out here that people have to stop thinking of the basics, you know, producer, blah, blah, blah. There's jobs in film and television and booking and touring. And, you know, I do a lot of college lectures, luckily. Of course, the pandemic ended that, but there's a lot of ways to go and reach out and try. And it's not always about getting to the person at the top. You know, it's finding out how the system runs and trying to stay in it for the long run. You know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I've been doing this shit since 1978 was my first check. So it's been a long time up and running. And I've seen a lot of people go and come and die and live and become rich and become real poor. And there's a lot of pain in this entertainment business, and it's not for the faint of heart. And there's got to be a side of us that is ready to fight and revolt, sort of stand up. You know, everybody says, well, let them own this, let them own. No, take some of that shit back. You know what I mean? Take it back. We can be owners. You know, like I said, if you're not at the table, you're going to be on the menu. You read my book, I was on the menu a lot of times over the years and had good runs places. But it always ended up with, oh, you know, when Donnie Simpson fired me at NBC, it was because my girlfriend and his wife were best friends when we broke up. Oh, I couldn't hang out with them. And his wife said, get rid of Paul. And he told me that shit. Like, where else can that happen except black people? You know? He told me that shit when I got fired. I was like, get the fuck out of here, man. You told me because Charlene and Pam don't get along? I wrote that shit in the book because that's how crazy it was. Yo, I took Kathy Hughes' station from a fucking 0 to a 4.6 in 9 months. And I remember when she made her first $1 million, you know, because the ratings went up, and all of a sudden in spots, you know, billing went from 100,000 to 4 million that year. And then she fired me because I went on vacation. Oh, and because my bonus was too big.
You know, I had $100, right?
Yeah, I had a big bonus and she's pissed off. And then later she hired me back and said, apologize. But I'm just saying, shit like that happens, man. So this don't think this is some struggle, but, you know, maybe I should have studied harder. You know, I went to Northeastern, went in for business, came out a DJ and a basketball player, you know? So, you know, I'm not complaining because I'm healthy and I'm here. And I get it because I've seen a lot of people go, man. A lot of people go. And, you know, that's why I'm working, man. I'm still working for people out here. But reach out and touch, man. I'm at Music Biz U on everything, even Cash App. So if I drop some wisdom, drop some dollars. But I own a station in Orlando now with my partner, The Wire 98.5. You can get The Wire 98.5. We're a nonprofit. We're teaching young kids to be broadcasters, and we're right in downtown Orlando and Pine Hills. So I take pride in that. I got my studio at home. I do voiceovers for TV, radio, for people, for whatever. So I lock myself in this booth here and I read.
So what you say, what's next for you?
The beach.
Was you gonna come out here? I'm in San Diego.
Oh, you out there, man? That's funny. I was out there not too long ago. Oh, you rich. Okay. Rich people live in San Diego.
Shit. I'm all right.
No, I got some good people out there, man. A friend from college has been in San Diego. I was out there for a conference, but yeah, Cali, man, y'all got them expensive homes, man. I can't afford out there, bro.
Yeah, I'm from Mississippi, man. So I joined the Marines, but I just stayed out here. I wasn't trying to go back to Mississippi. So
what part of Mississippi?
Columbus.
Okay.
It's like by Starkville.
Yeah. Yeah, because I had a boy named Larry Doc Elliott. I can't think of the town he's from, but when we would drive to his house, we would pass Jerry Rice's house.
Yep.
And on this little road, and you know, and when I went to his house, and that was the first time I've been in the deep South. Like Mississippi is outhouse South in some parts of town. And I was like, you know, the deepest South was for me, Ohio. I used to spend summers in Ohio, but I've always lived in New York, DC, Boston, or Miami, or Atlanta, you know, now Orlando. So, you know, my urban upbringing, when I get out to San Diego, I'm like, y'all are soft out there, but y'all gangster too, though.
But then I noticed with like you were saying, like how like with the jobs that always end with them firing you. But it just seemed like every time somebody new come in, it's like you're fine because every time somebody new come in, they want their own.
Yeah, they want their own team.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell this last story and close it. So I was at BET for 10 years. Stephen Hill came on from MTV.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Hill was from DC, and he sort of followed my career. He worked at ILD, and he's probably about 6, 7 years younger than me. So when he gets to DC, I was program director, and they brought him in like 9 months after me as vice president. He never talked to me. Knew him all these years. We had one meeting, and then 3 months later, he came and said, Paul, I got to let you go. I was like, yeah, I figured you ain't said shit to me.
They say you don't look in your eyes either, right?
Huh?
He didn't look in your eyes.
No. And he's shorter and all that shit. But I used to hate him for that shit. Then about a year ago on Clubhouse, I was in a room with him. You know, it was when Clubhouse was starting. And I'll never forget, it was Tyrese and Chuck from All Hip Hop, and they were bringing people on the stage telling industry stories. And they had Steven up there, and he was before me. And then Chuck brought me up, Paul Porter. That was the first time I got to talk to him since he fired me. And that was in 2001. It was 20 years later. So the funny thing was, I said, yo, Steven. I said, yeah, last time I saw Stephen Hill, he fired me. But if I saw him today, they thought I was going to say, I'd kick your fucking ass. But I said, I'd give him a hug. So he said, oh, man, Paul, that's nice. Then he said, I never told you this. Back when I got to BET, you were my favorite DJ of all time. I bet you never knew when I got to Boston, at my first job for 6 years, I called myself the captain, Stephen Hill. That shit freaked me out. I was like, what? How come you never said anything? And then it clicked. That was his problem. That wasn't my problem. You know what I mean? His ego, like he said, he was intimidated by me. And instead of learning, like when I got to work with Frankie Crocker, one of my radio idols, I was like ready to protect Frankie. But that's how I learned too sometimes. Some of the pain we keep on ourselves, that was his fucking pain. That was his problem. But I made it my problem and took it personal. But as I grew longer, that's why I grabbed to him in love. And I got to hear that story 20 years later. I was like, that motherfucker called himself the captain? Fucking midget? Nah, anyway.
No, that shit was funny about that shit you said about Frankie. So he had you doing the show like his voice and shit.
Yeah. Do everything except say your name. I could do everything except say my name. I used to do the sign off, but I was doing that shit just like Frankie. I was like 107.5 WBLS. Oh shit, that shit was great, bro. On in New York, and at 8 o'clock you would play that There I Go, There I Go. He had the theme songs, and the organ would kick off, and you say goodbye to New York. Best time in my life. That shit was better than TV, doing Frankie Crocker's show, sitting in for him. He only had a couple people in 30 years sit in for him. And when he picked me, I was on top of the world, bro, in New York City with, even though that was the end of his career, but that's how big he was to me.
Yeah, I want to say thanks for coming through Politic with me.
Yo, let's do it again, man. But next time I won't smoke weed ahead of time and be tired. But I think we had a good time to bond. Tell your wife, man, keep reading for you. Tell her I appreciate her.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, I really appreciate all the contributions you done gave to the industry, man. Like I said, for people like you, I wouldn't be no people like me. So I just appreciate all you.
We porters, man. I sent you a number. Like, yo, everybody in this industry don't bite it. You know, I try to help people. You might be helping me get my next gig. So let's all stay in touch. Like I said, I do voiceovers. Look up my VO reel, Paul Porter VO. You'll see it on G-Man. Hey, you know, let's make money together, or at least let's share some time and some experience.
Man, you want to hit him with your social media one more time?
I'm at Music Biz U on IG and Twitter. I got an app, Music Biz U, and I always talk back. You know, reach out, just give me a day. Don't be calling me up, but text me. I still got.
Thank you for listening to the PoPolitickin Show, your home for self-help meets hip-hop. For live content, subscribe to our YouTube channel.